The evening air was crisp as I stepped out of my 6-year-old sedan and looked up at the Zenith building, 72 floors of glass and steel piercing the city skyline. Tonight, the grand ballroom on the top floor was hosting the 30th anniversary gala of my father's logistics firm. I adjusted the collar of my standard issue, charcoal gray utility jacket. It was clean, functional, and bore the discreet logo of Apex Industrial Solutions. To my family, it was the uniform of a failure. To me, it was the insignia of a company that generated $68 million in annual revenue. The elevator doors chimed, opening to a sprawling foyer of polished Calicotta marble. The soft murmur of wealthy socialites and the clinking of crystal champagne flutes filled the room. I hadn't taken 5 steps before my mother intercepted me. Her eyes, framed by thousands of dollars of cosmetic enhancements, swept over my attire with visceral disgust. She was flanked by my older sister, Chloe, the newly appointed vice president of our father's company, draped in a shimmering emerald silk gown that cost exactly $4,500. "You actually wore that," my mother hissed, her voice a low, venomous whisper. She stepped closer, strategically blocking me from the view of their high-profile guests. "We are hosting the regional directors tonight, and you show up looking like you just scrubbed the lobby toilets. Do you have any concept of the embarrassment you cause us?" I looked at her, my expression perfectly neutral. I came straight from a site inspection. The invitation stated family was required to attend. "Family who reflects our status," Chloe interjected, her acrylic nails tapping against her champagne flute. "Not the family janitor. Dad just signed a 10-year lease for 3 entire floors in this building. Do you know how prestigious this address is? The management company here is ruthlessly elite. If they see us associating with the hired help, it ruins our corporate image." I took a slow breath, absorbing the sheer irony of her statement. The 10-year lease she was so proud of was sitting on my desk, awaiting my final signature. "So, what is the protocol you prefer?" I asked, my voice calm, devoid of any emotional fluctuation. My mother gestured sharply toward the service elevators. "Leave. Now. You are not going to ruin Chloe's networking opportunities. As of tonight, as far as these people are concerned, we only have one daughter. Do not contact us until you find a respectable career. You are entirely cut off from this family." I didn't blink. I didn't raise my voice. I simply gave a brief nod. "Understood. I will not interfere with your evening." I turned on my heel, the rubber soles of my boots silent against the marble, and walked toward the elevators. I didn't press the button for the lobby. I pressed the button for the penthouse executive suite. The trap was set, not by my design, but by their own relentless arrogance. The doors of the private elevator glided open, revealing the hushed, minimalist elegance of the Zenith building's penthouse command center. My chief of operations, Marcus, stood waiting by the massive mahogany conference table. Spread across the polished surface were 2 distinct documents: the commercial lease agreement for floors 40 through 42, and the overarching facility management and sanitation contract for the entire 72-story structure. Both documents required my final signature to become legally binding. "Good evening, ma'am," Marcus said, handing me a sleek digital tablet. On the screen was a live security feed of the grand ballroom directly below us. "The gala is proceeding as scheduled. The caterers have served the first course, and your family's executive team is currently mingling with the regional directors." I bypassed the leather executive chair and stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the sprawling grid of city lights. "Status on the logistics firm's lease negotiation. Your father's company is requesting a 10% reduction in the monthly maintenance fees, citing their prestige as a key tenant," Marcus reported, adjusting his glasses. "They are also aggressively complaining about the presence of our industrial cleaning staff during business hours. Your sister, Chloe, specifically filed a formal grievance just an hour ago stating that seeing workers in uniform is disruptive to their high-end corporate environment." I watched the high-definition security feed. The cameras zoomed in on Chloe, who was currently laughing loudly, her emerald silk gown catching the chandelier light. She was standing next to Mr. Sterling, the public-facing building manager I employed to handle daily operations. She was handing him a business card, clearly attempting to solidify her new executive status. She is entirely unaware that the uniform she finds so disruptive belongs to the exact company that holds the $4.2 million sanitation contract for this property, I stated, my voice a flat, analytical monotone. A contract that I own outright. Just as I own the concrete, steel and glass of the building they are currently celebrating in. How would you like to proceed? Marcus asked, his tone strictly professional. I tapped the cold glass of the window. Approve the lease conceptually but deny the maintenance fee reduction entirely. Furthermore, trigger the immediate termination clause on their current temporary access. If they wish to operate in my building, they will adhere strictly to my standards. Instruct Mr. Sterling to announce that the primary owner of the Zenith property and Apex Industrial Solutions will be addressing the gala in exactly 15 minutes to discuss the building's new operational protocols. Understood. And regarding your family's earlier interaction with you in the lobby? They requested that I leave to avoid ruining their networking opportunities, I replied, a cold logic settling over my thoughts. I am simply going to return and provide them with the ultimate networking opportunity. Prepare the financial transparency reports. I want the exact equity ownership percentages displayed on the main projector when I walk onto that stage. The grand ballroom was buzzing with self-congratulatory chatter when Mr. Sterling stepped up to the main podium. He tapped the microphone, the sharp feedback instantly silencing the room of 300 wealthy guests. My father, mother, and Chloe stood perfectly positioned at the front table, their faces glowing with anticipated importance. They were entirely ready to impress the mysterious billionaire owner of the Zenith property. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed tenants and corporate guests, Sterling began, his voice projecting clearly across the massive room. Tonight, we have a rare and distinct privilege. The sole proprietor of the Zenith building, as well as the CEO of Apex Industrial Solutions, the entity that maintains our flawless environment, has decided to make a brief address regarding the future operational standards of this facility. Please welcome her. The heavy mahogany double doors at the back of the ballroom swung open. I walked in. I hadn't changed my clothes. I still wore the charcoal gray utility jacket, my work boots echoing rhythmically against the marble floor. A collective murmur of confusion rippled through the upscale crowd. As I calmly passed the front tables, my mother's face completely drained of color. She lunged forward, grabbing my sleeve, her manicured nails digging desperately into the durable fabric. What do you think you are doing? She hissed, her voice trembling with intense rage and panic. I explicitly told you to leave. Security is going to arrest you. You are humiliating us in front of the owner. I calmly and surgically detached her hand from my jacket. I didn't say a single word to her. I simply continued walking, ascending the short flight of velvet-lined stairs to the main stage. Mr. Sterling bowed his head respectfully and handed me the microphone without hesitation. The silence in the room was absolute, heavy, and suffocating. I looked directly down at my family's table. My father looked profoundly confused, my mother was visibly hyperventilating, and Chloe's jaw had practically dropped to the floor. Good evening, I said, my voice steady, amplified, and devoid of emotion. I am the founder and sole shareholder of Apex Industrial Solutions. I also hold 100% of the equity in the Zenith property portfolio. I pressed a button on the podium remote. The massive digital projector behind me illuminated the back wall. It did not show a standard corporate logo. It displayed a certified banking snapshot and a legal chain of title. The numbers were large, stark, and undeniably real. Personal liquidity, $89,412,000. Property valuation, $145 million. And directly beneath that, the glaring termination notice for the logistics firm's lease negotiation. Earlier this evening, I continued, the cold logic of my words cutting through the thick tension like a surgical scalpel. I was informed by the vice president of the logistics firm, Chloe, that my presence as a cleaner was a direct threat to their corporate image. I was officially disowned by my family to protect their status in this building. I paused, letting the harsh reality of the situation completely crush the air out of their lungs. The projection screen bathed the ballroom in an unforgiving white light. The regional directors and high-profile guests were already whispering, physically stepping away from my family's table as if their profound arrogance was a contagious disease. My father, usually a stoic and imposing figure, was openly trembling. He pushed his way through the stunned crowd, followed closely by my mother and Chloe, all three of them rushing toward the edge of the stage. "Wait, please, this is a terrible misunderstanding," my father stammered, his previous authority entirely evaporated. His eyes darted nervously to the 9-figure financial statistics projected behind me. You own all of this? Sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? We are family. We can resolve this quietly. You absolutely cannot cancel the lease. We have already paid the non-refundable deposits to our contractors. It will bankrupt the firm. I looked down at them, my heart rate steady at a perfectly calm 65 beats per minute. There was no screaming, no vindictive joy, only the sterile, satisfying resolution of a balanced mathematical equation. "There is no misunderstanding," I replied, my tone entirely devoid of warmth. "You evaluated my human worth based on a charcoal gray utility jacket and a job title you deemed beneath you. You actively chose aesthetics over blood. I am merely reflecting your own business model back to you. A company that judges capital so poorly is a massive liability. I do not lease my premium commercial space to liabilities. We are your parents," my mother cried out, tears ruining her expensive cosmetic enhancements, leaving dark, pathetic streaks running down her cheeks. "We love you, we were just severely stressed about the gala. Please, you have $89 million sitting in cash. You cannot just throw your own flesh and blood out on the street over a silly argument." "It was not an argument," I stated, tapping the microphone stand to emphasize the finality of my words. "It was an explicit eviction from your lives. I accepted your terms. I am now strictly enforcing mine. The preliminary lease agreement is permanently voided. You have exactly 24 hours to remove your temporary office fixtures from floors 40 through 42. If your assets remain on my property by 8 o'clock on Monday morning, my industrial cleaning crew, the very people you find so repulsive, will throw them in the incinerator." Chloe opened her mouth to speak, but the sheer, overwhelming humiliation choked her words. She looked down at her $4,500 silk dress, suddenly realizing it was utterly worthless compared to the silent empire I had built. I turned away from the podium, handed the remote back to Mr. Sterling, and walked off the stage. I stepped into my private elevator, cutting off the sound of their desperate pleading, and returned to work,